Hey there, horror movie tea sippers.
The following podcast episode will contain spoilers for the movie we are about to review. If you have not seen the movie and do not wish to have anything ruined prematurely, please do not continue to watch or listen until you have seen the movie.
And welcome to the Horror Movie Tea Podcast. Today we are covering The Babysitter, which came out in 2017. But before we go into the review, let's grab our cups and talk about tea. So I'm doing a repeat because, as everyone could hear, I am still sick because this is the same day as last week.
Sounds so weird when you say it like that. This is the same day as last week.
We're recording this the same day that we did last week's episode. How about that?
There you go.
But
this has been the longest day of the year.
It's like Groundhog Day. Like, it just keeps repeating. But
over and over.
But I am drinking the Republic of Tea's The Crown, the Queen's Afternoon Tea. It has premium black tea, sweet blackberry leaves, and natural honey and vanilla flavors. And I have creamed cinnamon honey and lemon in my drink to hopefully help my cold. And then for those that did not join us last week, I just wanted to give a heads up. This tea, unfortunately, is now discontinued, but I will include another Republic of Tea below. The one that I can see that closest to the tea. So, yep.
You can words.
Yep.
And I am drinking Bigelow's Perfectly Mint classic tea. And it has black tea and spearmint. And I put it just a little bit of sugar.
My camera's driving me nuts again. Oh, well, this is fine. So, yep.
It'll eventually fix itself.
Yep. Sorry, video viewers.
Yep.
But thank you
This is normal.
to the Republic of Tea for allowing us to continue to do what we love. And for our tea sippers out there, brew yourself a cup of tea, sit back, relax, and we hope you enjoy the review. So, for The Babysitter. This kid's parents are having kind of a rough marriage, and in hopes of rekindling that marriage, they're going out and doing like different trips and staying at hotels. But
I think it's more just to reconnect.
Yeah.
Every so often. They're trying to keep the spice alive.
Yeah. But anyway, so this 12-year-old kid has to have a babysitter, and it's very strongly input in the movie is like, oh, he's the only kid left that still has a babysitter, and he's just kind of a loser compared to the other kids his age, blah 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 blah. But anyways, him and his babysitter have a very close relationship, like very friendly. Like, she is essentially like his friend, and his best friend that's his age is like, oh, you need to stay up past when she puts you to bed to see what she does. And so he does that, and when he goes and looks
when he spies on her.
Yeah, spies on her, he finds that she is doing, would you consider it a satanic ritual?
Yes.
Okay, she's doing a satanic ritual, and found out that she was using his blood because he's the blood of the innocent, and yeah. Anyways, so for the summary.
Chaos ensues. People die.
Mm-hmm. So this movie, I don't know how to describe the vibe of this movie, but it's got like a fun, quirky, weird vibe, but it's also dark.
It's like Cabin in the Woods meets Home Alone.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Sort of.
Yeah.
Um,
Like, it's got a very specific vibe, and
does.
I just connect to that vibe. Like, I am
Yeah,
all
it's
about it.
honestly, this one is so much fun. Ever since this movie came out on Netflix, I've just had a blast watching it every so often.
Yeah, same here. So it's like this movie, since it is like, it's not my favorite of favorite movies, but it is like pretty top tier for me. I would rate this a 7.75. It's like it's just such a weird, quirky movie. I love that all of the characters are interesting and varied, like even from like the quote unquote like villain side. Like all of them are very distinct and
I mean, they're kind of stereotypical, but at the same time, they don't, and they kind of lean into it, but they do it in more of a funny way.
yeah, like the cheerleader, whenever she gets shot in the chest, she's like, "You shot my boob," and she's just like so like she's not traumatized that she got shot. She's traumatized that she got shot in the boob.
In the boob.
And like so with the stereotypes, they play a lot to the comedy, like or like the quarterback, where it's like, "I can't win against you. You're the quarterback," and.
Dude, that character, I don't understand, but he's like surprisingly supportive of Cole.
Yeah. Well, and that's a part of like the weird quirkiness of the movie where it's like they're literally after him to like hurt him.
Yes. Even when trying to kill him, he's like amazingly supportive of him. And it was just so confusing.
He's like, "You gotta like stand up for yourself, kid. You gotta stand up against your bullies." And then he has him go off and
like,
try
"I'm proud of you."
Like, yeah. He's like, "What the hell?"
And he's like encouraging him the whole time when he's trying to kill him.
Yeah, it just
Like, who is this character?
yeah. Well, but like another reason why I really like this movie is, I don't know if you ever wondered this as a kid, but as a kid, I do remember the curiosity of, what do my parents do after I go to bed, or what does my babysitter do after I go to bed? And so I find it funny that this movie kind of expands on that curiosity and just makes it like like the worst case scenario type of thing.
I don't know. Personally, I never really wondered that. Though, to be fair, I didn't really have any babysitters. Like, it was always family members. Growing up. And it wasn't for long.
Well, see, it's like, I didn't have babysitters for that long that I can remember.
I think it stopped at like 8.
But I do remember like having like my grandparents put me to bed or whatever, and I would just like listen very intently against the door, like hearing what they're talking about, and like I was just like curious what adults did when kids weren't around, because for me it was almost like a secret world where it's like you don't know. But I
mean, I guess I probably didn't wonder much, because a lot of the times, like, as we were going to bed, they were queuing up a show that we didn't care about. So we knew that at the very least they were watching a show that, who cares?
That's
like,
fair.
we didn't want to watch it.
Yeah. But anyway, so every kid's different, but at least for me, it's like this movie really played upon like, oh, it's like I had that curiosity as a kid, so I found it interesting that they played upon that curiosity, because obviously that goes to show that like some kids do have that curiosity, and so it kind of explores that avenue. But and this movie is very clever, because I find it so interesting that everything that it shows that B, or the babysitter, knows about Cole, she uses it against him.
Yep.
So it's like, as you're watching the first half of the movie, everything that they're talking about and stuff like that, she then flips and turns it around against him later in the movie, which I think is really interesting.
Yes.
It's like, well, I'll kind of do it whenever I'm wrapping up. It's like this movie isn't just like your typical like, oh, it's a slasher movie. Like it's very intelligent. It's very like well thought out. They did like a very good job with like the pacing and the creating these scenarios. So that way, whenever it's turned around against him, you're like, oh my God, like I can connect the two. And without making it overly complicated too. It's like you can watch the movie like twice and be like, oh yeah, I completely like see through like everything. But I also love how most of the deaths in the movie are by accident. I mean, obviously the one when the girl's under the house, that was very much on purpose, but like most of the other deaths were by accident. Yeah. And I know we've talked about this before, where me and Jess's frustration with a lot of slasher movies or horror movies in general is like the main character can be like so stupid and it's just like, frustrating. But with this movie, the main character and the villain are both very smart. So whenever they're chasing each other, the tension feels real. Like you honestly don't know who's going to win because, I mean, technically he has the disadvantage, like a huge disadvantage. And so you're like, how the hell is he going to get out of this situation? And the things that he thinks of, you're like, holy crap, like that is like so smart. But then like to have B come around and be like, no, it's, and like completely turn around to where it's like the cycle to where it's like they're playing cat and mouse, but like a really good like cat and mouse game. And then, but yeah, it's like overall, like I really like this movie. It's a very intelligent, well thought out slasher movie, which is why it's one of the few slashers that I really enjoy watching. And because it's more than just, well, I guess I don't even know if you would consider this a slasher movie. It's hard to like. It's a twisted coming to age movie.
Very
because it's like Cole does have character growth. Like by the end, like whenever he drives the car into the house to kill her, which. A little extreme, but
at the very beginning he was scared of practically everything.
Yeah.
So he was kind of forced to grow up quite a bit during this one night.
Mm-hmm. So it's like I really enjoy the movie. If you haven't seen the movie, give it a watch. I can picture with how quirky and kind of weird it can be. I can picture not everybody liking the vibe of the movie, but I would think that you can at least appreciate like the way that they wrap it up in a nice little package.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually agree on the entertainment scale. I give it a 7.75 as well.
Nice.
Because this one's just so much fun to watch. You're going to hear me tear it apart a little bit in the realism, but...
Oh, yeah. We have to.
Because it's just not realistic in the slightest. But it's such a fun movie, and it knows that it's kind of a spoof movie. And they lean a little bit into certain stereotypes and things and tropes. But they still have fun with it. Mm-hmm. And you can tell the characters are having fun with it. And there's a lot of humor. The gore is decent and makes sense. It's not entirely accurate, which again we'll get to in the realism, but it's close enough.
Yeah, it doesn't
take you out completely.
Yeah, and it's not like extremely over the top.
Yeah, it's not gore for the sake of gore. It's gore that makes sense.
Yeah.
So,
well, and it's like whenever she stabs the victim in the head, it's not like his head explodes. Like there's some slasher movies that's like when you just like poke a person and they just like their whole body explodes. It's like it's a little. Yeah. It's more you can see those being the injuries that they sustain. Yes.
Absolutely. I love that they make use of Everyone has trigger words. That just words that sets you off. There was a lot of stereotypes, but again, they did it in a humorous way, and they didn't lean like too hard into it. Like normally the jock would be super toxic all round. But shockingly enough, he's one of the most supportive characters. And it's just hilarious to me. Like the whole time he's on screen, I'm sitting here like, this is not the normal jock type character. Like he has some of those traits, but they're normally not like encouraging anyone. And he's encouraging his victim the entire time.
Well, that's like the babysitter. That's like the cheerleader where she's like, oh, I can't like be what I want to be when I grow up, and he's like, what do you want to be? A journalist. It's like,
yeah,
you're like, what?
Which in a way kind of makes sense. It's still on screen and all, so it kind of still is in that not out of the realm of possibility. It's still in that mindset of what you would imagine someone would with that level of vanity
that's
going
more like
into.
A reporter, though. Journalists, they tend to do like the articles and like.
That's true. That's fair.
It's kind of. I mean, I'm sure it's possible for a journalist to have like TV time like a reporter, but I feel like they're more in the background, like writing articles and researching.
That's fair.
And stuff like that.
That's fair. My mind immediately went to like news anchor type, but you know. But yeah, they have almost a moment, like a heart-to-heart moment there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's so sweet. And he just... this poor kid tries everything he can to stay alive. When they have him tied to the chair, and he's sawing through the rope.
I mean, what else would you do? Like,
but it's hilarious to me. They're like, can he not see the mirror behind him? Like, we can see him trying to get through the rope. He keeps going, which fair.
Yeah, it's like you can't just like give up. Like you have to like keep trying at least. But yeah.
I love how the cheerleader's like, look at him, he's really going at it. Kind of encouraging him still. It was great. There's a lot of positivity in the movie that I did not expect, is what I'm getting at, really. The humor is, there's some wit, but there's also situational humor. Mm-hmm. And it's not all completely stupid, which I appreciate. Like, the characters, for the most part, are fairly intelligent and make decent decisions, mostly. The deaths, a lot of them are accidental. The effects are really good. Like, the budget for this film was actually really decent. Mm-hmm. Again, not realistic, and we'll get to that later, but they were decent, and it was fun to watch. It elevated it enough to where it didn't feel quite like a B movie.
Yeah, no, this does not feel like a B movie.
Yeah.
But it also doesn't necessarily feel like theater quality. I don't know. It's kind of like it's right in between.
It's definitely a Netflix, like straight to Netflix original type movie.
Yeah.
But not all of those are bad. Like there's some really good ones out there.
Yeah.
But it's like right in between. Like it's higher than a B movie, but just low enough that you definitely wouldn't have gone to see it in the theater. So it's kind of in that weird little no man's land between there. I'm trying to see here. There was so much that I was writing down that like this isn't right.
Well,
this
and
isn't
like
right.
On the encouraging thing, I feel like a part of the reason, like especially when they had him like tie it up, I feel like they just feel like since he's so small and decently like younger enough from them that like they just feel like they're the ones in complete control.
Oh yeah.
And so I feel like it's it's them like also playing around with him in a lot of ways as well, because they're like, oh, there's no way that we're going to lose to this kid, and they're losing to this kid.
Well, and I find it interesting how, like, each of them said they wanted something, but the jock, one of the most encouraging members of their group, was like, I just wanted to kill people. That's legitimately all I wanted.
Yeah. Which, you know, which is kind of a little bit disappointing, because on the one hand, wouldn't that be cool if he had like started off, like if he had indicated that he started off as like a loser, and he was like, maybe didn't have the physical physique, but then like the ritual like gave him what he wanted, and that's why he was so encouraging. But it's like, at the same time, it's like, it's not like you really need a reason, but that would have been an interesting twist.
It would have, but at the same time, they hadn't completed the ritual.
Well, but from what I gathered, they had done the ritual more than once. Well, at least B had.
B had done it before. She was starting to do the ritual again with them.
Okay, so it was the first time that they had been involved.
It was the first time that they had tried it.
Okay.
Yes. And they go into that a bit more in the second movie.
Yeah, it's been a hot minute since I've seen the second one.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll review that one at some point too. Personally, I prefer this one.
Oh yeah.
But again, that's a different movie for a different time.
Yep.
But yeah, this was their first time trying the ritual, and they didn't complete it because Cole was not asleep like they thought, and shenanigans ensued. So, but it was all in all a very fun, interesting movie. It wasn't, a lot of it was fairly predictable, but it wasn't too bad. It was still interesting to watch. And a lot of the twists and turns with their personality types, I think, really helped with that. It kept it interesting.
Yeah, it's more like how smart they make the characters, as well as, even though they're stereotypical, the twists of what they are as characters, or who they are as characters, that's what keeps it more interesting for sure.
Yes. Absolutely. So that's what I got for entertainment. You should go first for sure on realism, because I'm about to tear it to shreds.
Okay, well, we'll see. So, at least comparing this to other movies, this might be a little bit higher than you would maybe give it, but compared to like other movies we've seen, I felt like overall it's pretty realistic until you start picking at it, and then it slowly like unravels and becomes less and less likely. But so I gave it a 3.5. So the biggest repeating theme that did not make sense to me is, and I actually might talk myself into a lower rating now that I look at my notes, but we'll see. But is like,
we'll get there.
Is, since B does human sacrifices, she cleans up really well and really fast. Like, because there's a part where, like, you know, they're chasing Cole around, like they're all trying to get at him, and then he comes back to his house and it's like nothing had ever happened. Like, no, that's not how that works. Like,
it takes time and effort.
Yeah, well, especially like with human remains, it's like, because blood is so like viscous, it just goes everywhere. It's like there's going to be places that they missed if they like really scrambled the job. Like, it would take a long time to like clean it up and make sure that like everything is, Yeah.
I feel like you'd need a demon deal just to have everything.
Oh, yeah.
spotless and
Yeah.
perfect
They're
in
like
that
two
amount of time.
sacrifices. The first one to get what we want, the second one to clean it up. But,
Yeah.
But like Cole's traps are really smart. Like the one
Imagine that,
under
though.
what?
Can you imagine that though? You summon a demon just to clean the area.
He just like pops up and has an apron and
What is your
mop.
request?
Yeah.
I need you to clean this and make it look like it never happened. Did you really call a demon here to be a maid?
It's like Satan's cleaning service.
Yes.
But it's like I really like Cole's traps. They're really smart. Like especially the one under the house. That was really smart. And I like that it's just like with him going out the window and then him going under the house with there being spiders. I like he slowly works himself up to do more and more brave things until, you know, in the finale he drives a car through his house. And, you know, as much as I love the quirkiness of the quarterback being supportive, I will say that was extremely unrealistic because he literally let Cole go up to another kid and Cole could have totally just like acted like he was going to go up to the bully and then just booked it or asked the bully. I mean, I know he does like a little bit into the conversation, ask for help, but it's like he would have had a head start. Like if he's screaming his head off, like someone's trying to kidnap me or hurt me or whatever, and they're in a neighborhood, that he's going to catch attention real quick, especially with him being a little kid. I mean, not that little, but 12.
Yeah.
And then I do like
I think he figured that, it's a quarterback, so he's not going to get far. He already said, I can't outrun you.
Yeah. But it was very bold.
Yeah, it was.
Of him to like, because it's like he doesn't know who that, like Cole could have like stole the kid's cell phone and like started to call 911 or
stole the kid's bike. It was right there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's true too. Like you can't outrun a bike if you're going fast enough. But anyways, I do like the small details to explain why Cole did something dumb. Like when, like whenever he goes to his friend's house and she's like, you lock the doors, right? And he's like, you don't have automatic locking doors. And then that's when B's able to walk in. The fact that, like, because there's so many times where we're like, why didn't you lock the door? And then the killer comes in and there's like no explanation. You're like, they're literally just being dumb. Well, there's like an actual explanation. Like, oh, his parents are super strict and also like hoity-toity enough to have automatic locking doors, which lucky, by the way. But
well, how paranoid are his parents for one, but also damn.
Yeah, but it's like there's not very many movies that take the time to create explanations like that, so I really appreciated that. The most unrealistic thing to me is what I mentioned earlier is how B has the time to clean up all the bodies and carnage when they were all technically chasing Cole. And then at the end, when Cole technically stole a car and drove it into his parents' house, how there were pretty much no repercussions for that. Like they didn't take him in. They very much treated him like a victim, which I mean he was. But at the same time, well, it's like first, him stealing a car, which he obviously knows at that age that that's wrong. So he should have been taken in for that. But also with them, I could also see the argument that since he was away from the situation, he should have just called the police and gotten help. And him coming back to kill her is then at that point considered no longer a self-defense argument. So I could see multiple ways where Cole could have gotten in huge trouble for doing that and had some consequences.
So he wouldn't have been prosecuted for that, most likely because they didn't actually find a body.
Oh, yeah, that's very true. That's very true. That's a very good point. You're right about that. But he might at least...
there was theft of a vehicle, driving without a license, destruction of property on multiple counts.
I mean, obviously, since he's a minor, he would have gotten off a lot easier than if an adult had done it.
He probably would have been sent to juvie.
But, well, it's like I can see, like, at minimum, like, doing community service for a time. But, and
evaluated by a psychiatrist.
Yeah.
Or psychologist, at least.
Yeah. I guess, like, the other thing would be how B got away with doing all of those rituals for so long. But it's like, since this is just one situation, it's hard to know how well she handled the other situations. So that one, I
think
didn't
there was
really
only one other.
Oh, only one other? Okay.
Yeah.
Because she mentioned that, like, she would use a kid and then she would, like, move on to...
That was her plan, yeah.
But, so it's like that one I didn't really put in my rating for realism because I'm like, I don't know. But, man, I re-talked myself. I'm changing my rating. My official new rating is a 3. But that's all I got.
Okay. So I give it a 1.
Oh, dang. Oh, boy. Here we go.
So, again, I really do like this movie. I want to reiterate that. I
Little
love
disclaimer.
This movie. Disclaimer. Before we get into the realism, I do actually love this movie. It's going to sound, while I'm tearing it apart, that I hate it. But it is a really, really fun movie. It is not a realistic movie, but it is a very entertaining movie. So, that being said, let's begin.
Oh, boy.
The dude's like 12. Why is the dad trying to teach the kid to drive yet?
Yeah, that was weird. That's a good point, yeah.
There's no reason for it. I can understand, like, more often than not out in, like, country areas. It's a lot more common, but they're in the city, and there's no reason for him whatsoever to learn to drive yet. He's 12.
Yeah, like, I'd say, like, 13, 14 top, like, at the minimum.
I could, at the minimum, I could understand maybe starting to talk about it at 14.
Well, because you can get licensed at 15.
Yeah, but more often than not, it's like 16.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying, like, if the if the parents are like, we want you to be licensed right at 15, that they'd want to talk.
But it's questionable at 12 whether he's even going to be able to see over the steering wheel and reach the pedals at the same time. So, you know, just seemed a little out of place there. And at first, before they mentioned his age, I was sitting here like, okay, well, maybe he is a little closer to 15, 16, and that's why he's getting made fun of because he still has a babysitter. But no, he's still 12, which isn't unreasonable for him to still have a babysitter. Every kid is different, and sometimes certain kids develop a little slower than others, and the parents don't fully trust them to be on their own at home overnight, especially.
Well, like, so, like, to me, like, the having a babysitter, if a kid is that old, it isn't necessarily to tell them when to go to bed and, like, be a second parent. It's more of,
it's
like,
to make sure the house doesn't get burned down.
Well, I mean, more for like if something were to happen, like a break in or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like he has a guardian there to like guide him on what to do or to protect
Yes.
him or whatever. Like for me, it seems more like a safety thing at that age
is.
rather than
Yeah.
like, oh, we don't trust you, so you're gonna get a babysitter and they're gonna treat you like a kid.
Yeah. It's also for medical emergencies. Like if oh god.
True. Yeah.
Okay. Everything's fine. I
Okay.
accidentally bumped the camera stand with my foot. It's fine. Everything's fine. Um, so it's more like situational or medical emergencies.
Yeah.
Not necessarily that, you don't know how to take care of yourself, or we want to make sure you go to bed at this time.
Yeah.
It's to make sure that they're safe and not dead when the parents come home or their house isn't burned down, which, obviously didn't work in their favor this time around. But anyway, during the blood sacrifice, the blood would not spray out like it did from his head, like a friggin' fire hydrant. It did have good color. It was a little bit watery, but not terrible consistency wise for the blood. So good on them for that. I doubt the needle that she used to take his blood, Cole's blood, was sterile. They didn't clean the area or wipe it with alcohol. There was no bandage or anything. So even if he was asleep, he likely would have known something would have happened. But this is fine. Again, with the blood spraying, with the cops. The iron poker through the skull with no instant death was BS as well. That went directly through the brain. So, no.
Yeah, that's what I felt like with the knife through the guy's head.
Yeah.
Too. Like
it depends on the areas of the brain, I'm pretty sure, but there were two very large knives.
Yeah.
Both into the skull.
But she made it like really easy.
Really easy
to. It's like the skull is pretty thick.
I didn't count off for that because later in the movie she said that part of the original ritual that she did, she asked for strength.
Oh.
So I counted it as she's slightly superhuman, if not superhuman. So she was able to get the knives in easier, and the knives also were likely really sharp. So
that's true.
I didn't quite count off for that just because they made mention of it later in the movie. So they got a pass for that. But I did consider it at first. When they're trying to talk back to dispatch, 10-4 is copy. Not all clear, but okay. Not buying the dispatch would have just accepted the dude's voice either, though.
Yeah.
I know dispatch has a lot of officers that they communicate with, and they don't necessarily recognize every voice. But it just seemed off enough. There were no details or anything given. It just seemed a little too easy and too convenient. That they're like, okay, you're good.
Yeah, but I will say, like, whenever you speak over a radio, your voice is changed a little bit.
A little. But again, just the way that they were talking to dispatch and all, and dispatch was like, okay, this is fine. It just seemed off. And we'll get to more of the police stuff a little bit later as well. I have so many notes. The cheerleader shot in the chest, near the heart and lungs, and doesn't at the very least bleed out. No. Especially when they're not like putting pressure on it, trying to contain the area, trying to treat it. Nothing. Just letting it bleed freely. This is fine. The trophy that the other dude, I forget his name, but he's one of the first in the group to die.
Yeah, I don't
The one that gets
remember his
pushed over the
name.
stairs.
Yeah.
The trophy was randomly on the floor instead of on the table that they showed it on before, and turned to a different angle as well. Like, it was like this on the table, and on the floor it was like this. And it was sitting up on the table. Like, there was no reason for it to not be on the table. The table also broke when the guy was pushed over the stairs. But, he broke it on the way down. But the trophy was fine on the floor. The glass trophy was on the floor and fine and not shattered or anything. And it went into his neck that way. So, no, that was completely unrealistic death. Again, Max, the jock, is completely and surprisingly supportive, even when trying to kill Cole. I was very confused by this. I loved it. It was hilarious. But I was very confused by this. When Cole sets off the firework, the big one under the house, there's not more damage. Fire doesn't spread. No one calls the cops or fire department. No one even comes out to look.
True.
Like, we hear fireworks stuff all the time here when they're not supposed to be set off in city limits.
Mm-hmm.
And when we go to look, because we always go to look, there's several other neighbors that go to look as well. Just to see if, a general direction of where they're being set off. Because if they're close enough, there's a risk of fire to your house.
Yep.
And even if you're not concerned about your neighbor's house, you're going to be concerned about your own. That was a big freaking firework that went off. And being set off that close, it would have been a hell of a lot louder than just one in the distance, next neighborhood over or something. So people are going to look, if nothing else. And there's going to be at least one person that calls someone. Fire department, police, whatever. So, no. He also didn't get burned. He was barely singed when he was super close to the blast. Like, he was knocked back with flames.
Yeah.
So, okay. There's no way the rope got twisted around Max's neck on the way down. It's BS. So, no to that as well. Visually interesting and made an impact and was still slightly comical, but no. The roof of the treehouse was not in a ramp-like position at the start of the movie, but it was when he used the car to launch it in the house.
So that seems to be more like inconsistencies with the
Yes.
movie itself rather than like realism.
Absolutely. Yep. Well, I consider that part of realism.
Mm.
I demand consistency in my realistic storytelling. Thank you. I want to know where they ditched the cop car, because those things have dash cams and are low jacked and would be a huge source of evidence, DNA, fingerprints, etc.
Yeah.
The cops' bodies, which they likely put in the cop car, which would also contain a crap ton of evidence. Cole would be 100% arrested, if nothing else, for the theft of the car and destruction of property. And I guess we're supposed to believe B made it out because of the demon deal that she made previously, so no injuries. Again, she did mention that she asked for strength. Like, she was bullied a lot and wanted to be able to take care of herself. So she could have also asked for somewhat invulnerability to an extent. Or at the very least, accelerated healing. But what about the other bodies? Blood, destruction. I guess she could have somehow also had the demon deal to where, like, all of the evidence gets disappeared.
Yeah.
For the other bodies, or at least have time to clean up the other bodies. But the cheerleader chick that she used the shotgun to blow her head apart, she went after Cole immediately, and then Cole drove the car through her. So she didn't have time to get rid of that body. But the police were saying that, and the fire department were saying that they didn't see any bodies at all. So Max, the jock that was hanging in the backyard, was gone. Dude that got his neck slashed by the trophy was gone. Sacrifice Samuel was gone. That's what they called him. The Sonia, the chick that he blew up with a firework. Nobody there. So where did all of these go?
Mm-hmm.
And again, the cop bodies gone.
Yeah, because it's like this movie takes the time to explain a lot of the logic or whatever. So I feel like that if she had made a deal in the ritual to like clean up the stuff, that they would have explained that. So that definitely is like a mystery.
Sus.
Yeah.
And how did she expect the parents not to notice? Like, they killed the dude on a rug. You know how hard it is to clean blood out of stuff? Especially that amount of blood. Seriously? And then the broken railing on the staircase and all, even if she was able to kill Cole, how would she have explained all of the other destruction? Like, and gotten away with it? I don't know, just none of it made sense. There was a lot of it that just, no. No. It is a hilarious, fun movie, though, and great. It just... None of it is realistic, is what I'm getting.
Yep. Yeah, like, it's a really fun, like, quirky movie. Yeah. So it is worth the watch, definitely.
It is. And they've got some good intensity during a lot of the scenes. Mm-hmm. Like, you can tell there's a sense of urgency. There's a very real threat to the kid, and you're really rooting for him.
Yeah.
But it's not, like, super scary either. So if you're just wanting to dip your toes in to horror, then this is a good one to start off with, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like the thing that might bother people would be some of the gore. But it's like, the gore's not too bad.
Yeah. Again, it's not bad. It all makes sense. So... Honestly, I think the most graphic scene was probably the head being blown off with the shotgun.
Yeah, and I love how B like reacts to it too. She's like, "Oh my god, that was so graphic."
That was so graphic. Was not expecting that.
But
so,
yep.
Yeah.
But thank you for joining us today, and let us know on what you thought of the movie. If you'd like to recommend a movie, game, or tea, you can leave us a comment or join our Discord server. And if you'd like to keep up to date with our content, you can find our link tree listed below.
And if you'd like to support the podcast, please subscribe, like, and share our content. We also have a Teespring and a PayPal donate button if you'd like to support us monetarily, or our Republic of Tea affiliate link will be down below as well. It does not affect the price of the tea. It just helps us to continue to do what we love. And again, you can find all of the sites mentioned linked below. But until next time, guys, stay safe and stay spoopy. Bye!